Hello and welcome to SoundBites. I'm Bea.
And I'm Nina.
And today we're joined by Dr. Arin Keeble, our special guest, to talk about Twin Peaks.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's really exciting. So I'm Arin Keeble. I'm a lecturer here at Napier, and I guess I'm really excited to talk to you about Twin Peaks, and it was a pleasure to teach Twin Peaks for the first time last year on this Generation Television module. My research expertise is in contemporary literature, and I guess one of the things that took me to Twin Peaks, or took me back to Twin Peaks, because I watched it a long time ago, but one of the things that took me back is that I'm kind of intellectually interested in the 90s as a period. So Twin Peaks is a kind of like critically important inflection point in 90s history, I think.
Yeah, no, totally.
Even if, as we talked about in class, it comes out in at the very beginning of the 90s and draws on the history of the 80s to a significant extent. I think it's an important 90s text and sets the tone for things that would come later in the 90s. So that's part of the reason I've been drawn to it intellectually. I also just love it as a fan. I watched it when it first came out, and I've rewatched it many times, and always find something kind of new and exciting to think about.
Yeah,
lovely.
I don't know. I think for me, I didn't like grow up on it or anything. But I started watching it like a couple of years ago, and then I started realizing that I did grow up on it. Like my cousins used to watch it all the time, and I didn't know what it was because it felt like this like fever dream. It was almost like this mythical thing. And I completely agree about the thing that it just sets the tone for the 90s. And I think my favorite part of Twin Peaks is that I always forget it's a soap opera.
Yeah.
Because it's so campy, and it's just so, like, not what I expected it to be when I first watched it, but a pleasant surprise. Like, it was just so rewarding.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a lot more melodramatic than I was expecting going into it as well. And I only watched the pilot originally, and then there was about 2 months in between watching the pilot and watching the show for the first time properly, because it was all that I could like find at the time to watch. But yeah, I remember being really instantly surprised by just how kind of like ramped up all of the acting is, and it was just immediately like such a unique viewing experience. But yeah, we are going to be discussing Twin Peaks in detail today, and we're going to be also trying some of the food, listening to some of the songs, and Twin Peaks is not Twin Peaks without cherry pie and coffee, so that's what we're going to be trying today.
So our next topic is mystery and secrets. I think one of the things that draws me to the show the most is this ongoing mystery, and just the thing of like David Lynch saying that he didn't originally want anyone to know who actually killed Laura, because the purpose of the show was just this ongoing mystery. So I think it's very unique, and I think again it's just like the format of a soap opera. It's like never meant to end, but yeah.
I mean, that's exactly right. I think the soap opera form opens up its mysteries. And it's kind of a proliferation of mysteries, more and more betrayals and affairs and hidden lives. In fact, you remember that when we were looking at Twin Peaks last year, one of the kind of theoretical touchstones that we came back to is Michael Shale's book, Black Market Melodramas, all about TV's second lives and hidden lives. And Twin Peaks is like ground zero for that, because this is all about hidden lives and secrets. But I suppose the other thing about Twin Peaks that makes it more than just a soap opera is that it's so eccentric.
Yeah.
You know, so part of the mystery of Twin Peaks is like, why has Lucy got 85 donuts on the table? Or you know, all these kind of eccentric moves. Why is so many questions you could ask.
Yeah.
So there are different levels which you could think about the mysteries and secrets of Twin Peaks. I think.
I agree, and I think as well, like, the fact that all of these characters are so kind of interconnected and they're really wound into, obviously, the main mystery, which is Laura's death. It's just fascinating seeing how they function as a community and how their secrets start to kind of clash against each other and how they start to be revealed. Obviously, the very big spoiler, Leland, Bob, and everything that happens there. I think that Twin Peaks as a mystery, kind of murder mystery genre is so interesting, but combined with this melodrama, with this soap opera genre as well, it does feel very unique, and I think that's what makes it so special.
Yeah, and especially like just the whole mundaneness of the town. And I was thinking a lot about like certain scenes that kind of, if you watch them once, they kind of feel so useless to the plot. Like the guy that owns the hotel, I forgot his name.
Oh, Benjamin.
Yeah, him like eating those sandwiches. That scene of him eating the sandwiches, and then the scene of like Dale explaining the Tibetan method, and then they all just believe him, and they're like, yeah, okay. It's like some things are so wacky and so like not what screenwriting is supposed to be, which is so cool because it like transcends barriers, but it also like, yeah, it just gives you so much motivation to just be like, yeah, I can just write whatever the hell I want. Like,
yeah, and I mean, those are great observations. And I think one of the things I love about Twin Peaks is the kind of cross current you get, where on the one hand, you have this proliferation of secrets and affairs and betrayals. But on the other hand, you have this wholesomeness, right? Exemplified by Special Agent Dale.
Yeah.
Who, and you're right, they just kind of listen to him intuitively. Like they believe in what he has to say, and he's asking them to listen to his dreams, his strange dreams about a giant. He's asking them to follow his like throwing rocks at a bottle as a detective tactic. You know? So some pretty eccentric stuff that kind of takes it out of the mold of a typical police procedural or soap opera, but B works against that darker side, right? There's that lightness to it.
Yeah, I think Dale is like a fantastic character as well, because he's not your typical FBI agent character. He doesn't come in and kind of storm into the town and act like a macho man. He's approachable, he's logical, he's not too physical, he's more of a thoughtful and like introspective character, and he is so, like, the Tibetan method is fascinating. It's such a funny scene. And that makes Twin Peaks so special, just not really questioning too much the dream logic that goes into it. And I think that's something that obviously David Lynch applies to pretty much all of his work. It's just fantastic.
And surprisingly, I didn't because my mom watched it when it came out, and like my parents watched it and they loved it, and then I watched it and I kind of thought, I don't know why, but I thought like the generation after us would not really care for it. But now my sister is like sending videos of Dale and being like, who is this hot guy? And I'm like, you gotta watch this show. But yeah, something very interesting as well that I think is, I always think about the log lady a lot. And how kind of no one really fed into her delusions, or no one really believed anything that she was saying. And then when Dale comes in and kind of basically does the same thing and is telling all these people these absurd things, they just like blindly believe him, which is also really interesting. I mean, it might be wrong, but I don't know. That just from watching the show, I feel like that.
Well, B, I loved your observation about Cooper's kind of entrance into Twin Peaks, and he doesn't kind of like storm in and demand that everybody listen to him like we've seen in so many procedurals or mysteries. And instead, actually, he becomes really attached to the local sheriff, Harry Truman, to the extent that they have like a kind of 30-episode bromance.
No, totally.
But that's really interesting, your observation that it's kind of transcending generations as well, which is really nice to see, actually, because so few things do that.
And Twin Peaks out of all of them.
I know, it's so weird that it's like kind of surprising that it would have such kind of mass appeal or appeal across generations. But there's some kind of weird like equation at the heart of Twin Peaks that makes it kind of just everybody seems to like it.
It's just so charming, and I think part of the charm is also from each of the characters just being so fleshed out, because you have Josie, there's so much mystery surrounding her and what she's doing. There's mystery surrounding Catherine, and obviously Laura, and pretty much everyone in the town has such a, like, they're all so three-dimensional. They all have very, very clear motivations and flaws, and I think that makes it so special.
And I suppose part of that is TV, right? Because I mean, for one thing, there's 30 episodes of the original iteration of Twin Peaks. So there's a lot of hours of content. So there's narrative capacity for these characters to develop and grow and kind of do weird things. And we should say, I think, that not all of these twists and turns of story are amazing. There's some odd moves there. The whole like James Hurley motorcycle adventure is something I've never really got my head around.
He is actually going viral on like TikTok right now, because everyone is like, oh my god, I'm just trying to watch the show, but this guy's forehead is too big. It's like making me so mad. Everyone just immediately hates him.
The photo of him pouting.
Misunderstood James.
No, totally. And I still have that photo, like one of the stills of him sitting by his motorcycle looking out. I glued that on my notebook, and I didn't bring it today, but I like every time that I flip through that notebook, I stop through that and I'm just like, oh, James.
Troubled young man.
Funnily enough, the first person I've ever like met who's like James all the way through, shout out to my friend Mateo, and he is currently watching it for the first time with my boyfriend's rewatching it. And he loves James. He finds him so funny, and I think that's really sweet that someone has an appreciation for him.
Someone likes
If
James.
not me. Okay, we are ready for our first song, which is the Twin Peaks theme, composed by Angelo Badalamenti.
So that was the Twin Peaks theme by Angelo Badalamenti. And yeah, we were just watching a clip while we were listening, and yeah, just talking about how like iconic it is, and the font, the bright green font, kind of so iconic. But yeah, what do you guys think?
It's a very lilting, kind of serene, almost quite funny theme. It's very sweet and soft and kind of mellow, but it's just so kind of stereotypically kind of soap opera kind of. It makes me feel like I'm watching an intro to some sort of British family kind of gentle sitcom or something. It's really sweet. So I really love it, and Badalamenti's done pretty much the whole Twin Peaks soundtrack, and he's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great piece of theme music, and to me it kind of brings together some of the more distant parts of the like musical palette of the show, right? So on the one hand, you have these kind of sweeping, emotionally stirring, melodramatic score bits like Laura's theme. But you also have this element of like 50s doo-wop. You know, and I'm thinking obviously of like, you know, James Hurley again, and Donna and Laura's cousin, whose name escapes me now, but they're singing this kind of doo-wop song together. Just you. So the theme song has elements of that, like that kind of like deep bassy guitar note, boom, 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 boom. It also has that kind of swelling melodrama as well. You know? So it brings those parts together quite nicely.
And something about the images that are playing throughout the intro, just like that wood cutting machine. I don't know what that is, or it's like, and then that bird. That bird is so. I think about that bird all the time.
Well, I love that there's a Twin Peaks song again, but sung by Julee that is about the bird. It's called The Nightingale, and I love it, and it's a really beautiful song. And again, kind of the kind of very slow and sad kind of scenes, especially when I forget the name of the venue, but when they're all kind of at this venue.
Roadhouse.
Yeah, that's it. The Roadhouse. And obviously in Firewalk with Me, there's a scene where Laura is crying and breaking down before a kind of really dark scene happens. And I think that kind of melody alongside those scenes is really kind of heavily used in Twin Peaks, and it's great.
Yeah, it seems to be kind of part of the fabric of Lynch's ideas, right? Because that doo-wop aesthetic goes back to the 1950s, kind of Americana, small town, you know, high school stories of kind of young love and everything. And Twin Peaks kind of seeks to dismantle that a little bit, and also kind of celebrate it in some ways. So it works really well, and obviously Lynch shows the dark side of that 1950s American dream, and that comes through in songs like The Nightingale. Actually, that has that kind of doo-wop chord progression, but it has that melancholy too.
Absolutely. Well, we are talking now about the theme of dual identity, and I think that's, again, something huge in Twin Peaks. We see it in characters like Bob and Leland, we see it in Laura Palmer and her kind of double life that she lives, and we see it in so many people like Catherine when she's pretending to be someone completely different, and that's a very crazy storyline, but it's very, very prevalent through Twin Peaks for very different reasons as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just watching a video about like the whole thing about Leland and how it's like very tied to child abuse, and I think one of the songs that he sings is like a lullaby. It's like a children's lullaby, and yeah, it's such an incredible metaphor for something so dark, and they do it so carefully, and I feel like they do it so tenderly, but also like showing how it can destroy someone, which is really interesting. and again, like keeping the mystery going, like why is his hair white out of nowhere? And why is he acting like this? And
yeah, there are all kinds of double lives in circulation, and Benjamin is a good place to start with that, I think. But it's not just double lives, really. A lot of them have kind of multiple proliferating kind of secrets and personas that they adopt. So the reason I'm thinking of Benjamin is sometimes the show, it dramatizes these double lives, and then the two sides of somebody's life kind of are forced together. And I'm thinking, of course, of Benjamin going to his to One-Eyed Jack's and being kind of and entering a room with his daughter, which is kind of a horrifying thing. And actually, when you rewatch Twin Peaks, it becomes even more horrifying, because at that point about Leland, Bob, and what he has done to his daughter. And so for Leland to be kind of, put in this room or enter this room where Audrey is, has been kind of groomed into being an escort, really is really a horrible thing. So those kind of double lives thematically cohere at that moment. And there are other instances of that in the show as well, where the secret life comes face to face with the surface life, I suppose, as it were.
Something else interesting as well is you obviously have Bobby and Mike as characters. You have Bobby, who's this kind of he thinks of himself as kind of a tough guy, and he's quite goofy. He's in love with Shelley. They have a whole kind of secret affair going on without Leo knowing about it, which is obviously very tense and leads to a lot of scary encounters. But you also have his best friend Mike, who's kind of on the football team. He's probably one of the most normal kind of feeling characters in the show, because we don't really see him that much. But then you have, I find it interesting that David Lynch and Mark Frost decided to choose the same names. You have Bob and you have Mike, the one-armed man, and that kind of parallel is really interesting. I'm not completely sure what their intentions were with that, but I just think that it kind of adds this layer of like confusion and mistaken identity, and it's really interesting.
I mean, that's a great observation, I think, because I suppose at the heart of the show is this question of who killed Laura Palmer, and Bobby actually says at one point that we all did, and so that this kind of problem of violent and toxic masculinity is generational and pervasive and being replicated by the younger generation, as signaled by those names, is really important, I think.
Well, I think we're ready for our second song. We're going to play that for you now, and it is Laura Palmer's theme, also composed by Angelo Badalamenti. The song you just heard is Laura Palmer's theme, also composed by Angelo Badalamenti. What do you make of the kind of tone of the song, I guess?
I mean, I love Laura's theme, and I think one thing I forgot when we just played it there was that it starts with that kind of menacing mood music that is so widely used throughout the show. It's kind of ubiquitous, but then it kind of slowly moves into this swelling kind of love story theme.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah, it's great. I'm not sure what else to say other than like you can't imagine Twin Peaks without it.
Yeah.
You know?
No, totally. I've seen a video of like, I think it was the guy that composed it, and he was talking about when he played it to David Lynch for the first time. And David Lynch's like, it's breaking my heart. Yeah. Oh my god. He's like so sad. But yeah, there's like, we were talking about Laura Palmer just being like kind of such a hopeful figure almost, but then it's also like explaining that they're kind of doomed because they like let this girl die. But yeah, I feel like it's almost very hopeful in the end, and it's the thing about the end of Fire Walk with Me, and how it kind of ends in like a bittersweet note.
I mean, that's a great point, Nina, because it is Laura's theme, but it's a piece of music that touches almost every single character relationship, so it's another way in which the show is kind of using Laura and what she symbolizes and her death to connect it to this, vision of a community and a town and everything. The music helps make those connections, I think.
Yeah, totally.
I think it feels so connected to its setting as well, because I mean, it is so evocative of a cold, kind of gloomy winter or autumn evening in Washington, which you know better than we would, but I think it does just feel so immersive, and I do feel like I'm right there with the characters when I kind of have this soundtrack kind of going on, and all the imagery being so vivid, and that's something I really love as well, is that the whole of Twin Peaks, despite feeling so kind of strange and not making sense some of the time, it does feel like you're kind of experiencing it along with everyone because of how immersive it is. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, that's another great point. I'm from Washington State, so I know that landscape and the affective quality of that landscape very well. I guess that music is not the first thing I would kind of map on to that landscape. I connect it to it now because of Twin Peaks. But another kind of like weird set of touchstones or connections here. Twin Peaks comes out in the 90s, in the early 90s, 1990, and then it's broadcasting in 91, overlapping with the explosion of Nirvana and grunge music.
And Starbucks.
And also this kind of like, set of serial killers that are active in the 70s, 80s, 90s, like the Green River Killer. So there are strange things in which that are connected together by Twin Peaks music, culture, politics, social turns and events of the period. The music though, that song, it is so evocative. But one thing you were saying, B, is that it's like there's this kind of familiarity about Twin Peaks, and that music is the music of soap operas. I mean, it's on the one hand, it's kind of like distinctive and unique, and I admire the achievement of the soundtrack, but it's using well-known kind of tropes and expectations of what soap opera music does for our emotions, so it's kind of very conspicuously stirring and swelling. And it does give us that familiarity of the soap opera, I suppose.
Well, I think another thing about soap operas that's so kind of interesting, again, so visible in Twin Peaks, is the sense of community. You do have all of these characters interacting with each other. Often it's expected, it will be families, and it will be a dinner scene like Bobby's family, or it will be friends like Donna and Laura. There are scenes of them dancing in a sort of flashback video. But you also have kind of unexpected crossovers. You have, Catherine interacting with people, and you have Bobby and Leo. I had no idea they were connected until obviously the whole plot of the drugs storyline came out, and the dark kind of underbelly of the community in Twin Peaks. So I think community is obviously a huge theme because, as you said, Bobby said, we all killed Laura, and this community kind of contribution or neglect to kind of recognise the suffering of people going on in the town is so crucial to the story, I think.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I mean, I guess another one that jumped out to me is the Bookhouse Boys.
Yeah.
I like clubs and societies.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like them when they're exclusive, but I love that the Bookhouse Boys are kind of secretly looking after the people in Twin Peaks.
It's vigilante.
Yeah.
So that's cool, and community is important. And if we go back to the pilot, there are a couple of moments where the community's very clearly evoked, and so one is in the school when the announcement of Laura's death is made, so all the students kind of hear this together at the same time, and there are lots of expressions of emotion, and it's quite a powerful scene. And then there's another public announcement, not a public announcement, a workplace announcement at the mill, when the same message is conveyed. And so you've got this kind of workforce, school population, all hearing about this event. So the kind of, these institutions of the town are kind of connected together through that.
Well, something else I just find really kind of beautifully written is Donna when she finds out she hasn't even found out Laura's dead yet, but she knows because she knows her friend well enough, and she knows what's been going on. She knows that something's going on in the air, and she notices that people are starting to talk. And an announcement begins, and she sees Laura's empty chair, and that's all it takes for her to realise something terrible's happened. And that scene is just so sad because she knows that she's not been able to help her friend through whatever's been going on.
And it's also amazing storytelling. Because it just we immediately get it too, and we don't want to get it. But it's so sad.
Yeah, I was struck by that as well, and this is not my observation because I remember reading an article about that pilot episode, and one of the things, I haven't got the attribution right now, but whoever wrote this article was kind of pointing out that there are these excesses of emotion in that pilot, and one is Donna, who breaks down into tears. But then you also get a couple of male characters, which is quite unusual at that time. So you have the principal, who's kind of broken down in tears, and also lovable Sheriff Andy, or Deputy Andy, who just cannot handle his grief at the thought of just seeing a dead body actually sends him over the edge. And he is in some ways, Andy is a kind of slapstickish character, but he becomes more than that.
Yeah,
I think.
he's got moments of tenderness, and I think he's got to be one of my favourite characters. He's so lovable, and he is very sincere. He doesn't always kind of get what's going on as much as the other kind of members of the police force, but he has his heart in the game, and I think that's really important.
Oh, totally. I'm the last person who wants to celebrate televisual acts of gun violence. But having said that, is there a more satisfying moment Andy pulling out his revolver and taking down Jacques Renault to save Sheriff Truman, rising to the occasion, as it were.
Especially, I think, considering, previous scenes where he misfires a gun and he knocks himself in the head with a plank of wood. I love that he has this moment of heroism. I think it's really sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, we are now going to move on to our food section, and as we mentioned earlier, we have pie and we have coffee. We couldn't find any cherries because they're not in season, so we've made a blueberry and raspberry pie, and we'll be trying that. But while we do try it, we will be playing you our last song, The Bookhouse Boys.
What you just heard is The Bookhouse Boys by Angelo Badalamenti. And yeah, good one to end it on, I think.
It's so smooth. I really, really, really love the kind of drums, the kind of like continuous kind of smooth hissing percussion. It's really, really great.
And I think some of my favorite shows have, like, the soundtrack is a huge part of it. Like, I love Succession because it kind of feels like you're watching it play and someone just hit a cue. Like, and yeah, just how the show wouldn't be the same without this music and this style, and it's something so peculiar, but it feels like it just works so well with the themes. And
I totally agree, and I think it's one of those shows where whether you're watching it on DVD or streaming, you don't skip the title music, no matter how many times you've heard it. It's just a pleasure to listen to and to watch that kind of sequence unfold and set the scene, and the music throughout is wonderful, and it does have such a kind of specific and well-designed aspect to it. Again, like that kind of combination of the 50s doo-wop stuff and the swelling operatic, melodramatic score.
Yeah.
I just think it works so well. Of course, it works particularly well over a piece of pie, which is what we've just been eating.
Yeah. So what we've been having is blueberry and raspberry pie, kind of styled to look like the cherry pie they eat throughout Twin Peaks. Although I think they also do have huckleberry pie on the menu at the diner. I've never tried that, but it does sound great. So I'd like to give it a go one day. And we've also had some damn good coffee. So it's been great.
Coffee, yeah.
How was the process of making the pie?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, I cheated with the pastry, I'm gonna admit that now. But when I usually make pies, I make a short crust. I fold in butter into the flour, and it takes a very long time. And my kitchen gets really hot, so I knew that was gonna be a terrible idea to even try and attempt, because it would just melt and it wouldn't have gone well. But I got some pre-bought pastry. I boiled up some blueberries and raspberries in some sugar, and I reduced them down till they were nice and thick, and I put some cornstarch into the mixture to make it a bit more gelatinous, and topped it with a bit more pastry. Blind baked it before I put in the filling as well. That's important. But
Did you bake it in these tins?
Did, yeah.
Oh.
I was looking for something transportable, and so yeah, we have these really cute aluminium tins, and there will be photos on our Instagram as usual.
Yeah, it's super nice. The balance of I don't feel like the pastry is too heavy. It like works very well. And yeah, just that kind of sourness of the blueberry and the raspberry, but it's still somehow super sweet and enjoyable. So congrats, it's very good.
It's very good. I mean, Agent Cooper would undoubtedly approve. He would give himself a present. That piece of pie. I mean, I think that the Great British Bake Off needs to do a themed episode on Twin Peaks.
Totally.
That would be
So
so cool.
You'd have a pie challenge. Everybody makes a pie. Maybe the technical challenge could be donuts.
Yeah.
To produce like
Ooh, that would be hard.
25 donuts. Arrange doesn't even seem to arrange them. And then some kind of showstopper with the...
Yeah. And then the last one is just something really simple, but it's like coffee.
Yeah.
But it's like you need to make it perfectly.
Yeah. And it is just so, it's a very comforting, very familiar flavour, and it works perfectly with the sweetness of the pie. And it is just really nice to kind of eat and drink things that you see your favourite characters eating and drinking. And I mean, that's why we started this show to begin with. But yeah, it does make you feel like you're in Twin Peaks, especially looking at the weather outside right now.
And just food is such an important part of comfort and just I feel like getting to know a place, you can know a lot, you can find out a lot through its food. And that's kind of what Dale sets on, is like, if I'm gonna solve this, I need to understand these people, and I need to understand this town. So he just becomes a citizen of Twin Peaks, which is really cool. And just seeing him adapt and acclimate, it's really, really good. And just something like, I mean, like cherry pie is just kind of so American. And we were talking about Natural Born Killers being the next episode, and how they have pie in that too, right?
Key lime pie.
Yeah, key lime pie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that Cooper's kind of first impression of the people of the town is informed by his like impression of the food and drink, and I think it's really sweet. He's kind of like, this is a nice bite of pie. I think I'm gonna like everyone here. Like, I'm gonna get on great. It's really sweet. Yeah, I love it.
Absolutely. The first thing he does is recommend a local piece of pie to his boss on the phone, and he cannot stop extolling the virtues of Norma's homemade pies at the Double R Diner. Great stuff. This was really great. I feel very privileged to have shared a piece of pie with you all today.
We want you to come for every episode. Yeah. You should do that.
Yeah, it's been really great. Well, yeah, this has been such a fun episode to do because, I mean, we all love Twin Peaks and it was such a pleasure learning about it in your module last year. It really, really just was so much fun and it was so engaging. And yeah, like we've been wanting to do Twin Peaks since we started. It was like when we were coming up with a list of things to do, this was nearly number one. The food is so iconic and the soundtrack is also so iconic. And there's just so much to talk about because David Lynch has just put so much into it and Mark Frost and yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I actually bought the Diary of Laura Palmer, the one that David Lynch's daughter wrote. Yeah. I started reading it. It's actually very interesting and
so sad.
Yeah, very, very
so sad.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's been loads of fun.
Yes, thank you so much,
we're
Arin,
really
for
happy
coming.
that you came on the show, and it's been great.
Oh, I'm honoured and privileged and I'm nicely satisfied by a piece of pie.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Lovely.
Yay.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for listening to SoundBites, and we will see you not next week because I think this is it now for Christmas, but we will see you after Christmas.
Yes.
And we're going to leave you with one more song as a bonus today because we think that it would be great to play it. After mentioning it, we're going to play The Nightingale. But thank you for listening. Bye!
Bye!
He said one day